On the evening of the Passover feast, after Jesus and his disciples had eaten the Passover supper, they sang a hymn of praise together, and then they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to the disciples,
"This very night, all of you will run away and leave me, for the scripture says, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised to life, I will go ahead of you to Galilee."
It was Peter who then spoke up. He said,
"Master, I will never leave you, even if all the others do."
Jesus looked straight at Peter and said,
"Simon Peter, before the cock crows tonight, you will say 3 times that you do not know me."
Peter answered,
"Never. Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you."
and all the other disciples said the same thing. Then Jesus took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, James and John. They crossed over the Kedron Valley and came to a place called Gethsemane, where there was a garden. And a great sadness came over Jesus, and he said to them,
"Sit here while I go over there and pray." The sorrow in my heart is so great, it almost crushes me. Stay here and keep watch with me.
In his agony and distress, he broke down and cried out in desolation to his Father,
My Father, if it is possible, take this cup of suffering from me. Yet let it be what you want, not what I want.
He came back to the disciples and found them asleep. And he said,
Simon, were you not able to keep watch with me even for 1 hour? You should be awake and praying that you fall not into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be handed over into the hands of sinners. Get up now and let us go. The man who will betray me is already close at hand.
Jesus was still speaking when Judas, one of the 12, came near with a number of men armed with swords and clubs. The traitor had arranged a signal with them. He said,
"The man I kiss is the one you want. Arrest him."
Judas went straight up to Jesus and said,
"Peace be with you, Rabbi."
And Judas kissed him. And Jesus said to him,
Friend, do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?
Then Jesus spoke to the crowd.
Did you have to come with swords and clubs to capture me, as if I were an outlaw? I sat teaching in the temple every day, and you never laid hands on me. But all this is happening in order to fulfill the scriptures.
Then the disciples deserted him and ran away. They led Jesus away, back across the Kedron Valley and up the hill, to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had gathered. Peter followed from a distance as far as the courtyard. The council tried to find some case against Jesus in order to condemn him to death. Some came forward and told lies about him. They said,
This man said, I have power to destroy the temple of God, and in 3 days build it up again.
Then the high priest addressed him.
Have you no answer to give to this accusation against you?
But Jesus remained silent. Then the high priest spoke again.
In the name of the living God, I now put you on oath. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God.
Jesus replied,
It is as you say. Moreover, I tell all of you, from this time on you will see the Son of Man sitting on the right of the Almighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven.
At this, the high priest tore at his robes and said,
Blasphemy! You have heard the blasphemy. We need no more witnesses. What is your verdict?
And they all shouted,
He is guilty. He is guilty. He must die. He must die.
Some of them spat in his face and struck him with their fists. And they said,
Prophesy for us, Messiah. Tell us who hit you.
And they led him away. Meanwhile, Peter was outside in the courtyard, and one of the servant girls came up to him and said,
You too were with Jesus, the Galilean.
But he denied it in front of them all.
I don't know what you are talking about.
She started telling the bystanders.
This fellow is one of them. He was with the Galilean.
Again, Peter denied it, saying,
I swear I do not know that man. Of course you are one of them, a Galilean. Even your accent gives you away.
But he started calling curses on himself.
I swear I am telling the truth. May God punish me if I am not. I do not know that man.
And then Peter remembered what Jesus had said to him earlier, how he would deny him before cockcrow. And he went outside and wept and wept. When morning came, the chief priests and the elders made their plans to have Jesus put to death. They had him bound and they led him away and handed him over to Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate questioned him.
Are you the king of the Jews?
Jesus answered,
It is you who say it.
The chief priests made their accusations, but Jesus made no answer to them. So Pilate questioned him again.
Do you not hear all these accusations they bring against you?
But to Pilate's amazement, Jesus refused to answer a single word. At every Passover festival, it was the practice of the governor to release one prisoner at the request of the people. At that time, there was in the jail a notorious prisoner named Barabbas. So Pilate offered the people a choice.
Which of these two do you want me to set free? Barabbas or Jesus called the Messiah?
Barabbas! Barabbas! Barabbas!
What then am I to do with Jesus called the Messiah?
He must die! He must die!
But why? What harm has he done?
Let him be crucified! Crucify him! Crucify him!
When Pilate saw it was no use, and that a riot might break out, he called for a basin of water and washed his hands in front of all, declaring,
I am not responsible for the death of this man. The responsibility is yours.
Then Pilate set Barabbas free. He handed Jesus over to be scourged and crucified. Then the soldiers led Jesus into the praetorium. They put a scarlet robe on him. They made a crown out of thorn branches and placed it on his head. They put a stick in his hand, and they knelt before him and mocked him, saying,
Long live the King of the Jews!
When they had finished mocking him, they led him away to crucify him. On the way, they met a man coming in from the country, from Cyrene, named Simon. The soldiers forced him to carry the cross after Jesus. they came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. They crucified him there. People passing by shook their heads and hurled insults at Jesus.
You were going to tear down the temple and build it up again in 3 days. Save yourself now. If you are God's son, come down from the cross. He saved others, but he cannot save himself.
Some of the women who had followed him to Calvary now came near. Among them were Mary, his mother, Mary of Magdala, and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph. Seeing his mother there, with the disciple John, Jesus said to his mother,
"Woman, he is your son."
Then he said to the disciple,
"She is your mother."
At noon, darkness covered the whole country. It lasted some 3 hours. About 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice,
"Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani."
This means,
My God, why have you deserted me?
someone soaked a sponge in vinegar, ran up, and gave it to him to drink. Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. When it was evening, a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, together with a few disciples, came with a linen cloth to remove the body of Jesus. They took the body away and laid it in a new tomb, which Joseph had recently made from solid rock. Then they brought a large stone and placed it across the entrance to the tomb, and they all went away. Mary of Magdala took special note of where he was laid.